Hey, this is Eric, and thanks so much for joining me for this session, the Gem in AI, Google AI in Education. Before we dive on into this session, I want to make sure you can get to all the resources we're going to be taking a look at. So you see there is a bit.ly link here, bit.ly/Kurtz-Google AI. That bit.ly link will get you to a Google document, and that document has all of the resources we're going to be exploring, actually probably a lot more than we're going to be getting to in this particular session. But what that document looks like is this. So if you're winding up in that document, you are in the right place. On the first page, you'll find all of my contact information. Would love to stay in touch with you, keep learning together with you. So feel free to connect with me in whichever way works best for you. On page 2 of the document, you'll find a link to the slideshow and also a link to all of my AI resources. This particular session focuses on Google's Gemini, but there's a lot more out there in the AI world, so do check out that link as well. That'll take you to all of my resource documents and training videos and posts and tool spotlights on AI in general. And then the rest of the document is all of the content, all about Google tools for AI. So one more time, that is bit.ly/Kurtz-Google AI. All right, so what are we going to be talking about in this session? Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot we could talk about. We are just going to be focusing on Gemini for this particular version of the session. There are some other classic Google AI tools. There's neat things like Notebook LM. There's some cool AI things in search, and there's some other things we could look at. For this particular session, though, we're going to be focusing specifically on Gemini and all the cool things you can do with that for personal use or education use. All right, so let's dive on in. So first of all, I guess the place to begin is, what is Google Gemini? So Google Gemini is Google's AI chatbot. If you're familiar with things like ChatGPT, or Claude from Anthropic, or Copilot from Microsoft, same idea. Basically, Gemini is a large language model. Now, we don't need to get into all the gory details, but basically what it comes down to is this is an AI computer system that Google has created, where basically what they've done is they've trained it on as much information as they can possibly give it. They basically fed it every book ever written. They feed it every website that can be browsed. They've given it images. They've given it videos. They've given it music. Basically, they've trained it on trillions of pieces of information. So the AI has been pre-trained on all of this amazing information. Now that it has that information in its training, you can talk to it, hence it's a chatbot. You can just chat with it and you can ask it questions and it will generate responses. It's not going to just copy paste something from a web search. Instead, it is literally going to generate a response to the questions that we ask it, and it can generate all kinds of content. Now, if you're familiar with something like ChatGPT, then you're like, yeah, Eric, I get it. But if you haven't ever used a tool like that, I did want to at least give the basic explanation of what's happening in the background here. A couple of key things about this. You can use it for free. You do not have to pay for Gemini, so please don't feel any obligation to do so. There's a free version that you can use as much as you want. It's fantastic. There is a paid version. There's a paid version you can pay for with a personal Google account. There's also a paid version for schools if schools wish to do so. But there is a free version for personal use. There's a free version for schools. Yes, there is a paid version. We might touch on that just a bit. I'm going to focus mostly though on the free stuff. I think that's more important. Also, quick heads up that if you're using a personal account, 13 and above is the age limit for this. You do need to be 13 or older. At the moment, if you're using a school account, it is still 18 and above. Google has not yet made this available for under 18 on school accounts, although as of this recording, that will not be the case, of course, going forward in the future. I know their plan, they've mentioned making this available for younger than 18, but that is not rolled out yet. All right, well, enough intro. Let's head on over to gemini.google.com and check this out. And I would encourage you, if you're following along, go there right now with me. Go to gemini.google.com. Just sign in with your Google account. And while I'm doing a demonstration here, try it out yourself. Type in your own prompts. You don't have to type in what I'm typing in, but try it out, take it for a spin, see how it works. It's a great tool. All right, so let's head on over there. So here I am over at gemini.google.com, and pretty straightforward. Basically, there's a box down here where I can type in my request, my question for Gemini. So I've already pre-typed up some things just to save a little time. I'm not the quickest typist here. So for my examples here, I'm going to pretend that I'm a science teacher, and maybe, I'm teaching a new grade level or something that I'm not, as familiar with. And I've got a unit coming up on the life cycle of jellyfish, so that's, let's just say that's, my hypothetical here. And I'm like, hey, I need to remind myself about the life cycle of jellyfish, because maybe it's something I haven't taught before. I'm not familiar. Well, I could pop over to something like Gemini and I could say, hey, let's get some help here. So I could pop on over and I could drop in a prompt like this. I could say, hey, explain the life cycle of the immortal jellyfish. That's a kind of jellyfish. As I was trying to figure out what might be neat to use as an example, that's one that I came across and said, oh, this might be a neat one for us to explore. So let's say that's something I'm going to be teaching. I can ask Gemini to explain that to me and just go ahead and click submit. And what you're going to notice is it's going to start generating. As you can see, the words are appearing on the screen here. That's not being copied pasted. It's actually writing this live as we're watching it. And there it was. That was pretty quick. That actually came up pretty quick. But basically, Gemini just pulled from the trillions of things that's been trained on, and it's created fresh and new for me this response. If I ask this same question tomorrow, I won't get the exact same answer. I mean, same facts, but slightly different wording, because it is generating this live and fresh every time. A couple key things to point out here related to what it generated for us. First, let's just start from the top and we'll work our way down. Notice it does have a link or a button at the top called Show Drafts. You can give a click on that if you want. Basically, what that does is if you read through this response and go, oh, that's a pretty good answer there, but if it's not quite what you're looking for, you can hit Show Drafts and Google will actually give you multiple versions of the response. So you could say, okay, this was draft 1. Let's try draft 2 instead. Let's see, does this explain it in a way that I understand better? Or you know what, let's try draft 3. Maybe this one is, a better match for me. Now, I'm not saying these are all that different with this case, because it's pretty cut and dried, as far as what this jellyfish response is. But if this was a more subjective type of a prompt, if it was something, maybe it was writing a story or something, these drafts might be very different in each case. And that's a neat feature. I do like that. You can see if one of them makes more sense to you than the others. You could even get generate new drafts. Say, hey, I don't like any of these. You could do that. I'm just going to stick with draft 1, but wanted to show you that was an option. Another thing that we have as an option here is the ability to do text to speech. There's a little listen button up here. If I give a click on that, let's see if that comes through okay.
The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, has a fascinating life cycle that sets it apart.
I'll just go ahead and pause that there. But so you can also use the listen button there, and it will read that aloud to you. Now, at the moment, there's only one voice to choose from on the web version. Heads up, if you're using the mobile version, I believe there's 10 voices you can pick from. I believe they are going to apply those to the web version as well. So eventually you'll be able to pick more voices. But that's nice to have it read aloud, especially, if you're doing this in a class activity and you want that, read aloud for the students to be able to hear. Let's go on down to the bottom. And let's see some other examples here of things we could do. Of course, there's the thumbs up and thumbs down to give feedback to Gemini on whether it was a good or bad response. Here's a cool button, the modify response button. So if you click on that, you can say, hey, that was a good response, but can we tweak it a little bit? Can we take this response and make it shorter, or longer, or simpler, or more casual, or more professional? So if you do want to change this response, here are 5 quick ways you can do that. Now, keep in mind, I mean, you could just come down here and say, hey, thanks, that was great, but could you put that in simpler terms? You could just type that yourself and it would pretty much do the same thing, but it's just a nice quick way. If you just want to be like, hey, just give me that simpler, boom, you could just click it and it'll do it for you. It'll regenerate that for you. The next button over is the share button. Here you can, we'll do a little bit more with this in a moment, but you can share this result with others. You can also export it to Docs or Gmail. There's a little 3 dots button here that allows you to copy the response. So if I wanted to copy this and paste it into a Google Doc or something like that. And then here we've got a really cool button. I do want to take a little bit of time to look at this a little closer. So the Google icon at the bottom there, if I hover above that, it says double check response. This is a really neat feature. Not a lot of tools do this. When Gemini generates a response, if you want, you can click on the double check response button. And when you do that, what it does is basically it fact checks the response. So here's the deal. AI can make mistakes. It does happen. AI is not perfect. I mean, it's good, but it's not perfect. It can make mistakes. And so it's really important that as educators, we let our students know that we are very clear with them. Listen, you've got to fact check things. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. And just because an AI said it doesn't mean it's true. Students need to be critical thinkers. They need to be skeptical. They need to, ask follow-up questions and things like that. Well, here is one tool that helps in that process. So with Google, if you click on the double check response button, basically what you get is you get color coding. It color codes things green if it can find websites, reputable websites that support the information. That's great. Color codes things orange if it can't find support or if it finds contradictory information. Now, if you look at this one, I'm hoping it's mostly green. Yes, good. I figured it would be. I mean, I don't think this is a very controversial topic here about this jellyfish. But in this case, it's basically letting us know, yeah, we didn't find anything contradictory. That's good. But not only that, take a look at this. Any of these that are green, I can click on them and it actually gives me a website I can go to learn more about that. So not only is it fact checking it, it's saying, hey, dig deeper. I can click here, I can click on that link, it'll take me out to the website, and now I can read all about the immortal jellyfish in much more detail. I really appreciate that. That is probably one of my favorite features of Gemini. I mean, there's a lot of really cool things about it, but I wish every tool did that. I wish this was just built into ChatGPT, and maybe it will be someday, but I wish it was just part of every AI chat bot out there. So heads up, if you are doing something that you want to do a quick fact check on, just click the double check response button, and that will do that for you. Let's see, anything else to mention while we're looking at our first response here? I guess heads up, there's a little microphone button down here. You can also speak your prompts if you don't want to type them in. All right, so far so good. Well, let's go deeper. So we've asked a first question, explain this life cycle. But remember, I'm pretending that I'm trying to teach my students about this. And so I might say, okay, that's good, but I want to make sure that, my elementary students are going to understand this, So I could say, okay, explain that in simpler terms, in a way that'll be understandable and engaging for an elementary school student. So I'm going to follow up my first prompt with this second one. And now Gemini should generate a new response. But this time I'm telling it, hey, let's put this in simpler terms in a way that hopefully an elementary school student would understand. So now we're talking about, imagine this tiny jellyfish smaller than your fingernail, but it can live forever, and now it's talking about, that whole process. But again, putting it in much simpler terms here that hopefully would be more engaging and exciting for a student. Now, if we really want to get creative here, I could go further and say, this is really great. This is awesome. Let's do this. Let's say, put that in the form of a poem in the style of Dr. Seuss. And so now it's going to take everything it knows about the immortal jellyfish, everything it knows about explaining it to elementary students, and everything it knows about Dr. Seuss. And it is putting it all together now into a poem for us here. And so there we go. Again, it's unique. It's been generated just for this particular conversation here. And if we like it, we can copy that and use it. I could come down here and just easily copy that and use that any way that I would like. While we're doing that, though, let me mention something else that's kind of cool. Let's say I was looking through this. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is a good poem. This is going to help the students understand it. Let's say for whatever reason, maybe the very last verse I just didn't care for. You're like, everything else is really good, but this last one didn't just quite land. This is a neat feature of Gemini. You can select just a portion of the response, and you get this little pop-up little pencil that you can click on. You can say, you know what? I just want to modify just this part of it. Leave everything else alone. I loved all the rest of it, but just this spot. So all you do is you just highlight that, you hit the pencil and say, you know what? I want this part shorter, longer, or, just give me another version of it. I could just hit regenerate, and now it's going to leave everything else alone, but just this final one, boom, now we're getting a new version of that maybe we like that better, and if not, no big deal, but it does give us a way to tweak that I think is pretty cool. All right, let's keep going a little further. So another neat thing about Gemini is it can pull images in as well. So I could say something like, hey, show me some pictures of the immortal jellyfish. You've been telling me all about it. You've been, teaching me about it, but what's this thing look like? So this is a cool thing. Gemini is able to just do a quick little Google web search, and it can go out and it can find images and it can bring those in. It does say it's very, very small, so it's hard to find good pictures of it, but it's saying here's at least a diagram that gives you a little bit more information about it, which is pretty cool. So speaking of images, though, another cool thing Gemini can do is it can understand pictures. So here's what I mean. Let's say I have a picture of a jellyfish, and I do. So here's this picture of a jellyfish. This actually is not an immortal jellyfish. This is a moon jelly, but let's say I have this picture of a jellyfish here. Well, what I can do is I can come down here to the prompt area, and I can actually upload images. I can give an image to Gemini. So let's do that. Let's go upload image. And let's see, I'll go into my resources here. I think I've got the jelly. There he is. There's the jellyfish there. I can upload that picture of that jellyfish. And then I could ask it a question. I could ask Gemini, hey, is this picture an immortal jellyfish? And so it doesn't just process text, it also processes images. So hopefully it's going to tell us not. Let's say, that's a beautiful jellyfish, but nope, it's not an immortal jellyfish. Here's why. Looks like it's probably a moon jelly. And that's right. Very, very good. So that's a cool feature, is it's not just text. Gemini can process images as well. Speaking of images, though, it can even go further than that. It can generate pictures. Now, I don't mean like just finding one, like it can actually draw pictures for us. So it can do text to image. So let's say I ask it something like this. I'll say, hey, create a cute cartoon style image of an immortal jellyfish with the text YOLF. Now, I'll leave it up to you to decide why I thought that was funny to put YOLF instead of YOLO in there. So let's go ahead and I'll drop that in, and hopefully it'll now make a picture. It's not Googling an image, it's not finding a picture, it's actually drawing a picture of an immortal jellyfish in a cartoon style image. Hopefully it gets the text right. Sometimes text is a little harder for these to put in, but let's see. Oh, nope, it did it. It did really good. So there he is. There, he's so cute. There's my immortal jellyfish with YOLF. instead of YOLO. So pretty cute there. Love it. Awesome. Good stuff. So that gives you at least a quick overview of some of the basics of interacting with Gemini. Now, let's go a little deeper. Let's keep spreading out here as we go so we can get into a little bit more. Something that I do want to mention is everything I've done so far has been one conversation, one big, long conversation. Well, you can have multiple conversations. You can come up here and hit the plus button to start a brand new chat. That way it starts from fresh. It doesn't remember what you were having in that previous conversation. So if I come up here and hit the plus button, ta-da, now I can start from scratch and have a new conversation. Those old conversations don't go away though. They're still available. Basically what you can do is if you expand your menu over here on the side, you will see your most recent conversations over here. So there it is, life cycle of the immortal jellyfish. I can click on that and guess what? There it is. I can get right back into that conversation, pick it up, continue that conversation later. If I need to see more, I can come down here and I can expand this out. And I can keep going back as far as I need to find previous conversations. Now, if you can't find something, if it's like way far back, there is an activity button down here. If you click that, that lets you go back 18 months. So you can go back 18 months to see conversations that you've had. So that can go a whole lot further. Another cool thing to note is the ability to pin conversations. So let's say I didn't want to lose this immortal jellyfish conversation I was having. Like, I'm not going to lose it, but I just don't want it to go way down the page. I can hit the three dots button and I could say pin. And if I do, what that does is it basically pins it to the top here along with these other examples. And then it would always be there at the top until I decided to later on unpin it if I chose to do so. All right. Cool stuff. All right. With all of that said, though, let's go ahead and start a new conversation because I just want to show off a few other cool things that we could do with Gemini. So another neat thing that I wanted to share is the ability to share your conversations with other people. So let me explain what I mean by that. So let's say I went to Gemini here and I say, you know what? I'm going to put this prompt in. So the prompt I'm dropping in says, you are an excellent lesson designer. I'm going to provide you with a grade level, subject area, topic, or standard. I want you then to generate a lesson plan that has all of these things in it: standards, objectives, duration, pre-assessment, post-assessment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I dropped that prompt in. Well, Gemini responds, sure thing, happy to help. You give me the grade level, the subject area, whatever, and boom, away we go. Now, here's the cool thing. I can tee this up. I can give it the original prompt, kind of get it ready to go. And then what I can do is go to the bottom and I can click on the share button. And then I can click on the share option here. And then I can click create a public link. And when I do that, what it does is it gives me a unique link here that I could copy. Now, here's the cool thing. I can now give that link to anybody else. If they click the link, they can pick up my conversation where I left it off. Now, they're going to have their own version of it. They're not changing my conversation, but basically they're going to pick up their own version from where my conversation ended. So I could say, yeah, let's copy that link. And then I could, give it to somebody else. They could click on that link, and basically this is what they would see. Looks like, here's the original prompt, here's Gemini's response, and then continue this chat pops up at the bottom. So that means somebody else could just click continue this chat, and then they could go into it and say, awesome. And now they could fill in, okay, I teach, such and such a grade level, and this is my topic and whatever, and boom, it's going to generate a lesson plan for them. So why am I sharing this? Well, basically the reason I'm sharing this is, what this means is you could create some prompt templates and share them with your colleagues. Like, you could begin the prompt and then give them the link, and then they could just pick up where that left off. So maybe as a a school district or a building or a department or a grade level, you could have a Google Doc or a spreadsheet that has all these links in there. Like, oh, hey, do you want to make a rubric? Click this link and it'll jump you right into that prompt. Or, hey, do you want to make, a choice board? Here's a really good one. Click this link and boom, it'll jump you right into the prompt. So this can be a really neat way for you as a district to build your own, warehouse of really good AI prompts. You start out the prompt, you use the share button, copy that link, and then share that with others. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's look at a couple other things real quick. When it comes to sharing, I did want to show this really quick. Remember I talked about how you can share to Docs and Gmail. So let me show you that real quick. Let's say I popped over to Gemini and I said, hey, you know what? I need a rubric. Can you generate a rubric for me? Let's do like a 1 to 4 point scale. Let's have it be from a middle school persuasive written report. Let's say the topic is why should school start later in the day for middle school students? Okay. So let's say I drop that in and Gemini goes to town, starts generating this rubric for me. So here it is. Here's, my 4 levels. Then here's the different categories, thesis, supporting evidence, organization structure, voice and tone, mechanics and grammar. So boom, there it is. It has created this entire rubric. Okay, at this point, now that it's created this whole rubric, let's say I want to use it. I'm like, oh, this is really good. I want to use this, maybe modify it, put in, my own tweaks, but it's a good starting point for me. Well, let's go down to the bottom and let's look at that share button again. When you click on that share button, there's the option to export directly to Docs. Well, this is really nice. Basically, what that means I can do is just come down here, click export to Docs. It's going to take all of that, create a Google document for me. I can click open Docs and there it is. There is that rubric ready to go. Now, again, I would want to go in and personalize it, double check, tweak it, adjust it for my class. But how nice that is for it to easily generate that and put it into a document for you. Not only can it send things to Docs, it can also send things over to stuff like Google Sheets. So like the actual rubric itself, if I didn't want the whole thing all going over to a document like this, I can actually come here and click where it says export to Sheets. And that will just export the rubric. So give that a moment and boom, it's opening up a spreadsheet. And of course, at this point, I'm going to have to come in here and, clean this up. I'll have to turn on the text wrapping, and I'll probably need to adjust the size of the cells. You get the idea, but the point is, there it is, all in a spreadsheet ready to go. The same kind of thing can be done if I want to export things to Gmail. I can come down here and say something like, hey, write an email to elementary school parents with suggestions to encourage student reading at home. And here it is, drafting up a Gmail message for me, which again, I would never send it out exactly as it is, but maybe it's a starting point. I'm going to work from this. Well, notice at the bottom, if I click the share button, there we go. I can share it to a draft in Gmail. Click that. It's going to take that message, click open Gmail, and give it a moment. There it is. And there it is. So now I could go in and I could, of course, change the subject. I could, adjust this, put my own personality in it, etc. But nevertheless, boom, there we go. I could now have that email ready to go. All right. So those are some neat features within Gemini. Let's talk about another cool thing that Gemini can do, and it's something called extensions. So let me pull those up under the little settings gear here. There's a link called extensions. So extensions are something newer that Gemini is adding in, and basically what it does is it lets Gemini connect with your personal information. So far, none of it has. Everything I've done, every prompt I've put in, every question I've asked, those have all been just, pulling from what Gemini was trained on. It doesn't have access to my personal information. Well, that's where extensions can change things. With extensions, you can say, you know what? I want to give Gemini the right, if I so ask it to read my email, to access my docs in my drive, to, pull up Google Maps and YouTube, pull up my Google Music, things like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of how I could use this. I think for a quick example here, I'll do one that accesses my Gmail. So I'll pop back over to a new chat, and I'm going to drop in the prompt, give me a summary of this week's Gmail messages from our GEG Ohio Google group. So when I submit that, because I have turned on the extension option, notice it's actually connecting to my email. It's reading my Gmail messages. That's fantastic. And so basically now it can jump over to my Gmail, and it's giving me a summary of some of the key messages that came in from our GEG Ohio group this week. Now, just for clarification, when it comes to extensions, this is something that at the moment is available for personal accounts. If you're using like your personal Gmail account like I am. For school accounts, it's in beta right now. So you will not see this on a school account. I believe it is going to become part of the paid version for schools. But right now, there's a beta where you can try it out. But as of today, right now, the extensions, that is something that you would be using on your personal account. So maybe now's a good time to do a little clarification of that. We've seen the basics. We've seen the main things that Gemini does, how you prompt it, interact with it, pin conversations, share conversations, things like that. Let's talk about differences. So I think we've hit a lot of this. I'll kind of skip through. We've covered, all of these different things. So I think we've hit a lot of this. Let's get to the differences. Oh, and we did mention this too. I talked about how there's a mobile app for Gemini as well, where you can talk and use 10 different voices. But let's move past that. So let's do this. Let's take a couple of minutes and try to suss out what's different on a personal account versus a school account, or a free account versus a paid account. So all the stuff I've shared with you, for the most part, anybody can use. That's all just free stuff. I tried to highlight the free uses of Gemini. So first of all, one of the things that starts differentiating things is school versus personal is data protection. Now, this is really pretty cool. So here's how this works. If you're using a personal Gemini account, you do not have any data protection on that. And that's true for really any kind of AI chat tool. If I'm using ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, it really doesn't matter. If you're using an AI chatbot with just a regular personal account, anything you type in, technically it's fair game for that company to use any way they want. They can take your conversations and use those to train future models and things like that. Well, for a school, that's a problem because, schools may be putting in information that's a little more sensitive. And so here's the cool thing. If you're using Gemini on a school account, you get for free data protection. It's just built right in. What does that mean? Anything you type into the AI chatbot will not be reviewed by humans. It will not be used for advertising. It will not be used to train future models, and it will not be shared with any other users or institutions outside of your school. So that's fantastic. Now, always follow the procedures and policies of your school about what's appropriate to share with the chatbot. But at least Google is moving in the right direction here. They've stepped up big time here and said, hey, if you're using Gemini on a school account, we will not reuse or share your data outside of that interaction. So that's nice. So that's one of the differences. Okay. Let's talk about some other differences. What about the differences between free and paid? So what I was showing you again, just, free features within Gemini, but there is a paid version. So with a personal account, you can pay $20 a month, like with a personal Gmail account, and you can get extra features. Now, there's also a paid version for schools. You yourself wouldn't pay it. Your school would pay that. I will explain that as well here in just a moment. But let's talk about the personal paid options. So basically, you get a number of things. If you pay $20 a month, you do pick up some neat features. You get a more powerful model that can handle more information at once. It can generate images of people. Now, I didn't specify that earlier when I had Gemini make a picture of a jellyfish. The free version will make pictures of pretty much anything you want, but it won't do people. You do have to be using the paid version if you want a person in the image. Another cool thing about the paid version is you can upload things more than just images. Remember when I was here and I clicked on the little plus button and I talked about uploading an image? Well, yeah, with the paid version, you can also upload files and you can grab things from your drive. So that just expands what you can feed Gemini. Instead of just saying, hey, look at this picture, you can say, hey, read this PDF. Hey, look at this spreadsheet. Hey, read this document. And so that's something that comes with the paid version as well. Another thing that comes with the paid version is the ability to create and use what are called gems. Basically what that is like a reusable chat that you want to use over and over again. So the gems section, I'll pull that up real quick so you can see it. Basically with gems, you can go in and you can build your own gems, or you can use some of the ones they've already created there. And basically what it is a chat bot that has instructions that it doesn't forget. So for example, let's say I wanted to do an activity where my students were going to interview an AI. This is a common activity that I do a lot of times with schools where we say, hey, let's have the AI pretend to be a character from the book you're reading. Let's interview Gatsby from The Great Gatsby, or hey, we're learning about sharks. Let's interview a shark. Or we're learning about somebody in history. Let's interview somebody from the Oregon Trail or something like that. Well, you can have the AI pretend to be a person or an animal or a thing. Well, what I can do with gems is I can basically set that up once, and then I can just use it over and over and over again without having to give it all of those details every time I want to run it. So like if I come here, if you go into the edit here, you'll see basically I give the gem a name and then I give it instructions. I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Every time I run you, you're going to pretend to be something. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to ask, the teacher how old the students are. You're going to ask what role you're going to play. Once you know that, you're going to play that role. We're going to ask you questions. You're going to answer them. Watch out for biases, avoid stereotypes, etc., etc. And so I basically created this gem that now I can use over and over and over again anytime I want. So now I can just come into here and say, hey, let's click on the AI interview. And when that comes up, I can just say like, hello, and it should pop up here. And it should say something like, hey, great to be interviewed. Tell me about your students. What age are they? And what would you like me to be? And I could say something like, my students are in grade 5. For this interview, please be an immortal... if I could spell, jellyfish. There we go. And there we go. And that's it, And so now the AI is going to pretend to be an immortal jellyfish, and now we can start. And so now I could do this as a class activity. Hey, kids, okay, we've been learning about jellyfish. Guess what? We've got a jellyfish in class today. Let's interview him, And so now the students could come up with questions and I could put the questions in and we could have this conversation. Now, could I have done that without creating a gem? Well, of course. But making it into a gem, it just saves me time. I don't have to go through and re-enter all of the guidelines that I give it to, have a safe, unbiased conversation and all those kind of things. That can just be baked right into the gem. So that's cool. I think that's a neat feature there. So that is something that is unique about the paid version there as well. And then lastly, the ability to use Gemini inside of Gemini. And I'll explain this a little bit more as we move into the school version of this. But basically the idea is, instead of going to gemini.google.com, with the paid version of Gemini, Gemini follows you when you're in Gmail, when you're inside of Google Docs, when you're using files. There's a little Gemini option that pops up. Let me just show you. It'll make more sense if I just show you a quick example here. So let's say I pull over a document here. So this is just a document, how to change a tire. Nothing fancy about this. Just a demonstration document. So if I'm in a document now, take a look in the top right-hand corner and you see a little Gemini button up there. That's there because I'm using the paid version of that gives that. So instead of going to Gemini, Gemini comes to me. When I'm inside of a document, I can click on the little Gemini button and suddenly I get a Gemini panel inside of Google Docs. And basically I can ask it questions. I can ask it to summarize things. I can ask it to rephrase things. There's so many possibilities here, create a list, make a blog post out of this. I could say something like, outline the main points of the document. So I could click on that. And if I go ahead and run that, it's now going to read through the whole document here, and hopefully, there we go. It's giving me a nice outlined version of it. I can also come over here and select text in the document itself. And then after selecting the text, I can click on the little Gemini Help Me Write button there, and I can use that as well. Change the tone of this, summarize it, bulletize it. So I could say, yeah, hey, let's bulletize it. Let's make this into a bulleted list, So the point of what I'm saying is, all of this stuff, and there's the bullet list there. If I like it, I could use it. Of course, I don't have to use that, but I could use that if I wanted to. Now, of course, could I have taken this article, copied it, gone to Gemini, pasted it into Gemini, and said, hey, take this article and put it into a bullet list? Absolutely. So, I could go from here to Gemini and do that. The nice thing is, though, you don't have to. Gemini will come to you. You can just access it right there, and it's all convenient in one place. Now, that's a very, very simple example. There's a lot of other things you can do, but that's the main idea. So with that in mind, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Gemini for schools, the paid version. So again, just for clarification, everything I showed earlier is free. It's going to be free. You don't have to worry about it. You can always go to gemini.google.com, use it for free. You do not have to pay for it. But if you want to, like I said, you can pay on a personal account, or schools can pay for what's called Gemini for Google Workspace. Now, basically, here's the gist behind that. Like I said, the idea is it's going to bring Gemini into your Google tools. And there's two main versions of this, and they cost slightly different. And the big difference is whether it's unlimited or not. So again, you're not going to be paying for this. This is something your school would pay for you. But basically, it is $20 per user per month, or $30 per user per month. The big difference being at $20, you can use it 1,000 times per month, where at $30, it's unlimited. You can use it as much as you want per month. Now, use what? What are those things? So it's basically what I was talking about earlier. So in Google Drive, you can go to Google Drive and you can pull up Gemini to summarize documents, to pull content from multiple documents together. So it'll just be a little side panel over here, and you can grab files from your drive and ask it questions about those, and it will give you feedback on your files. In Docs, we already saw this as an example. It can write things for you, rewrite, proofread, etc., etc. So this all happens inside of Docs using the Help Me Write, or using the side panel that we saw over there inside of Docs. In Google Slides, you can have it generate images, make backgrounds, generate new slides, summarize a presentation. So again, that's going to be a panel over here on the side. You ask it questions, boom, it'll create content for you there in Slides. In Google Sheets, summarizing data, creating tables, making formulas. Again, you're going to get a panel on the side, and that will interact with your sheet. In Gmail, writing messages, refining messages, summarizing email threads, organizing your inbox, on and on and on. Again, inside of email, it can help you write, or just in Gmail in general, it can come up on the side here and provide like a summary for an entire thread to say, oh, hey, you were out at a conference and you missed, these last 10 conversations. Well, here's what this thread is about. Google Meet as well. You can use Gemini and Google Meet. It can listen to an entire meeting and grab the transcript and summarize it and generate like minutes from a meeting as well. So a lot of cool stuff there. All right, so that's the gist. As I said, there are other Google tools outside of Gemini. I would definitely, love to encourage you to explore the rest of those. Those you'll find in the document there. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up this particular session because we were just focusing on Gemini itself. So as a reminder, everything that we looked at for this session, bit.ly/Kurtz-Google AI will get you to that document. In that document, you'll find all of the resources. If you haven't tried out Gemini, if you're more of a ChatGPT person or even haven't even gotten into AI, I hope this encourages you. Take it for a spin. Use the free version. It's very powerful. It's come a long way since it began. And maybe if you want to investigate some of the paid options just for the other bells and whistles they have, now hopefully you know a little bit more about those as well. But hey, thank you so much for letting me be a part of your learning. And if you made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing, accessing all of my resources at controlaltachieve.com, and connecting with me at bit.ly/CAA-connect, where you'll find my email, social media links, newsletter, and more.